Welcome to CEO Corner Podcast. You know that feeling, right? Start a project, maybe it's a new website, or planning a big event. You've got a clear vision, you think, and then somehow it starts. Well, morphing. Suddenly that simple thing needs all these extra bits, or maybe you finish something and it turns out half the cool features weren't even, needed.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic trap. It happens all the time.
It's super frustrating. So today, we're doing a deep dive into something absolutely fundamental for project success, project scope management. Think of it like making sure the blueprint for your house is spot on. We build exactly what's planned, nothing less, and really importantly, nothing more. We're using the PMP study notes from the CEO Corner Network as our guide here, kind of treating them like the practical manual for this tricky area.
Exactly. And our mission today is really to help you understand how project managers make sure a project includes all the necessary work, but also only the necessary work. It's about getting it done right without those annoying detours.
Yeah.
Building stuff that doesn't actually serve the main goal will definitely hit on those two big problems. Scope creep,
Ah, yeah, scope creep.
right, when things just sneak in uncontrolled. And the other one, gold plating.
Gold plating sounds fancy, but probably isn't good.
Not usually.
Mm.
That's when the team adds extra bells and whistles. Maybe with good intentions, but stuff that wasn't asked for and doesn't add real value. Think solid gold taps when brass was fine.
And just quickly, before we really dig in, it's super important to get the difference between product scope and project scope.
Okay, yeah, I've heard those terms.
They get mixed up a lot. So product scope, that's the what? The features, the functions of the thing you're building, the house itself, number of rooms, that kind of thing, measured against product requirements.
Got it. The end result. Exactly. Then project scope is the how. All the work needed to deliver that product. Laying foundations, wiring, testing, cleanup, all of it. Measured against the project plan.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin with managing scope? It sounds like you need a plan just for the plan.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. That's the very first step. Plan scope management. This whole process is about defining how the project scope will be laid out in detail, how it gets approved, and then critically how it's controlled all the way through.
So not the what yet, just the how, the rules of the game.
Precisely. And it produces two really key documents. First, the scope management plan.
Okay.
Think of that as the rule book. How you'll stop scope creep, how change requests get handled, who settles disagreements, how deliverables get signed off. It's all in there.
Right, the procedures.
Yep. And second, the requirements management plan. Now, this one sounds similar, but it's kind of the secret sauce for managing what people actually expect.
Stakeholder expectations, yeah, always tricky.
Totally. This plan details exactly how you'll gather, document, analyze, and prioritize all those requirements.
Yeah.
How you process new ones, track them. The notes really hammer this home. This plan is your main tool for understanding and managing what stakeholders want. It defines the whole life cycle for every single request. It's foundational.
That makes a lot of sense. Get the rules straight first. So we have our rule book, but knowing the rules doesn't tell you what game you're playing. So once we know how we'll manage scope, then we need to figure out what the scope actually is, right? Time for some detective work. Collect requirements.
Exactly. Now we get into the what. A requirement, simply put, is just a condition or a capability your deliverable has to meet to satisfy someone, a stakeholder, a contract, whatever.
So specific needs, not just vague ideas.
Right. Quantified, documented needs and wants. And they're different types. Business requirements like maybe increase sales 10%. Stakeholder requirements, what users need. Then solution requirements, what the product does, functionally and non-functionally, like security or speed. Even transitional ones like training needed to use the new thing.
Wow. Okay, lots of categories. How do you actually gather all that stuff? Seems like it could come from everywhere.
It does. Project managers use a whole toolkit. You've got data gathering like brainstorming, interviews, focus groups, surveys, maybe benchmarking against others.
Standard stuff, yeah.
And then data analysis, digging into existing documents, contracts, that sort of thing. The notes also mention some clever data representation tools like affinity diagrams. Great for sorting a big mess of ideas into related groups.
Ah, like sticky notes on a wall.
Could be, yeah. And mind mapping good for generating ideas and seeing connections.
Gathering all this, especially for something complex, it kind of makes my head spin. How do you make sure you don't miss something crucial or just get totally swamped?
Yeah.
And keeping track of it all sounds like a recipe for chaos if you're not careful.
It absolutely could be chaos, which is why the Requirements Traceability Matrix, or RTM, is such a lifesaver.
RTM, okay.
Think of it as the GPS for your requirements. It's basically a grid. It tracks every single requirement from where it came from, who asked, why it's needed, all the way to the deliverable it relates to, how it's tested, its status.
Wow. Okay. So end-to-end tracking.
Exactly. And crucially, the RTM is super effective at preventing gold plating
How so?
because it's the documented proof. If something isn't traced back to an approved requirement in the RTM, well, it shouldn't be getting built. It makes it really clear what was actually asked for. And just a quick note, good requirements docs need to be crystal clear, traceable, complete, consistent, and definitely acceptable to the stakeholders. They need that formal sign-off.
Right. Otherwise, you're just guessing what the client wants.
Pretty much. Building a house without asking the owner about the rooms.
Okay, so now we've got this big pile of meticulously gathered requirements, our raw materials for the house. How do we shake that into a solid, clear picture? The actual blueprint sounds like we're ready to define scope.
That's the perfect analogy. Defined scope is where you detail both project and product scope. You clearly state what will be included, and just as vital, what will not be included. This is also where you nail down constraints, assumptions. It all gets documented here. The main output is the project scope statement.
The North Star, you called it.
Yeah, I like that. It's much more detailed than the project charter, which is usually high level.
Yeah.
The scope statement gets specific. This house, 3 beds, 2 baths, brick, exterior, whatever. And it allows for progressive elaboration.
Meaning?
Meaning you don't need every single detail perfectly defined on day one. You start with the main picture and you refine it, add detail as you learn more as the project matures, like filling in that painting sketch.
Okay, that makes sense. It evolves.
Right. And within this process, we also use things like product analysis. A key technique mentioned is value engineering.
Value engineering. Sounds like cost cutting.
It can lead to cost savings, but it's smarter than just slashing things. It's about systematically looking for alternative ways to improve the product or do things more efficiently without hurting the actual scope or quality, getting the most bang for your buck.
Optimizing, not just cutting. Got it.
Exactly. And that project scope statement document, it's packed. Project objectives, detailed scope for both project and product, the deliverables, acceptance criteria, how you'll know it's done right, boundaries, what's out of scope.
So shedding expectations clearly.
Absolutely. It's your definitive guide, your shield against that dreaded scope creep later on.
Okay, so blueprint is drawn, detailed, agreed upon. Now,
Right.
how does this translate into actual work? Getting things done. This sounds like where the create WBS work breakdown structure comes in. Seems pretty fundamental.
Oh, it's more than fundamental. The source material is incredibly blunt about this. It literally says, if you take on a running project without WBS, you must stop the project immediately and prepare the WBS first.
Wow. Stop everything.
That's how critical they see it. A WBS is basically a hierarchical decomposition of the work. You break the project down into smaller, more manageable pieces, and the key thing is it's based on deliverables. The tangible things you're producing, not just a to-do list of actions.
Okay, deliverables, not tasks. Keep hearing that.
That's a crucial distinction. You break it down until you get to the lowest level, called work packages. These are chunks of work you can realistically estimate, schedule, and design, often something like 8 to 80 hours of effort, assignable to one person or team.
Manageable chunks.
Exactly. And the 100% rule applies. The WBS must cover all the work defined in the scope statement and nothing more. 100% of the scope.
Leaves nothing out, adds nothing extra.
Precisely. Now, the WBS itself doesn't show you the order of things, the dependencies.
Right, it's just a breakdown.
Yeah. That extra detail, like descriptions, assumptions, acceptance criteria for each bit, that goes in the accompanying WBS dictionary.
Ah, the dictionary provides the context.
Correct. And sometimes you'll see control accounts in the WBS. These are just specific points higher up in the structure where you bundle costs and schedule together to make tracking performance easier. So the big output here, the really critical thing created by the project team, is the scope baseline.
Scope baseline, and that is...
That's the approved version of the project scope statement, the WBS and its WBS dictionary, all bundled together. It's the benchmark. All future progress, all changes are measured against this baseline. It's your anchor.
Okay, anchored. So we do the work outlined in the WBS. How do we make sure the customer, the stakeholders, actually accept it? That final inspection on the house sounds like validate scope.
That's exactly what validate scope is for. It's about getting formal acceptance of the completed deliverables from the customer or key stakeholders.
Formal sign-off.
Yep. Often happens at the end of a phase, or maybe for each major deliverable. Think user acceptance testing, UAT. The customer looks at what you've built and says, yes, this meets the requirements we agreed on.
So how is that different from, say, quality control? Aren't you checking quality all along?
Good question. They're related but distinct. Control quality is more internal, focused on correctness. Did we build it right? Does it meet the technical specs? Like your internal team testing the code or inspecting the wiring, it checks if the deliverable is high quality.
Checking the work itself.
Right. Validate scope is external facing, focused on acceptance. Does it meet the customer's requirements? Did we build the right thing? In fact, verified deliverables from control quality are an input to validate scope. You check the quality first, then you ask the customer to formally accept it.
Makes sense. Check it yourself before you show the boss.
Pretty much. And if the stakeholders aren't happy during validation, if they find issues or want changes, then change requests can obviously come out of this process too.
Right, back into the change process. Okay. So we've planned, collected, defined, broken it down, built it, got parts accepted. But projects are messy. Things change. How do we keep the whole thing from drifting off course once we're deep in the execution phase? Feels like we need constant vigilance. Is that control scope?
That's the one. Control scope is the ongoing process. It's done proactively throughout the project to prevent unnecessary changes, whether they come from inside the team or outside. It's about constantly monitoring the project status, looking at the work being done, and comparing it against that scope baseline we established.
Checking against the anchor.
Exactly. Are we still on track? Are there variances popping up, differences between the plan and reality? If so, why? Do we need to take corrective action? Or maybe preventive action? A huge part of this is having a really solid, well-documented, and enforced change control process.
Yeah.
You can't just let changes slip in. They have to go through the proper channels.
Rigorous process.
Absolutely essential. And the notes offer a key insight here. Ultimately, the customer usually has the final say on scope changes. If there's a disagreement, you generally resolve it in favor of the customer. After all, they're the ones paying.
Makes sense. Customer's king, usually.
Within reason, of course.
Yeah.
And we use data analysis here too, like variance analysis, comparing planned versus actual performance to figure out the cause of deviations and decide what to do. Trend analysis too, to see if performance is improving or deteriorating over time. It's all about active monitoring and adjustment.
So let's wrap this up. What's the big takeaway here for you listening in? We've walked through this whole roadmap for project scope management. From planning the boundaries, gathering every need, painting that clear picture, breaking down the work, getting the sign-offs, and then, yeah, fighting off those sneaky changes. It really boils down to smart planning, talking clearly, and keeping a really close eye on things to, well, nail your project goals and stop that project turning into something you didn't intend.
Couldn't have said it better. And understanding these processes, it's not just PMP jargon. It's really about developing a mindset to deliver what's actually needed. It helps prevent wasted effort, ensures people are satisfied, and avoids those horrible moments where a project just spirals, or you realize you built something technically amazing but totally useless to the client, that gold-plated shed instead of the house they wanted.
Yeah, avoiding that is key.
So here's a thought for you to take away. Think about a project you're involved with right now. Could be big or small. Can you maybe spot any signs of scope creep or gold plating happening, even subtly? Maybe an extra feature someone's trying to add, or a task that just kind of appeared on your list. What's one small thing you could do, maybe even today, to bring a bit more scope discipline to it? Could just be clarifying a requirement or drawing a clear line, or even just asking, is this really in scope? Every little bit helps.
Great challenge. And before we sign off, we definitely want to hear from you. What are your biggest scope headaches? Ever rescued a project that was going off the rails? Hit the ring to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. Leave us a comment below, share your stories, your ideas, your questions. And if you found this useful, please share it with colleagues or friends who might be wrestling with scope.